Hi, everyone. So excited to be here, especially having these two wonderful guests today. We've got Kelly, we've got Michaela. The word of the day is marketing. So excited to have comments coming through. Chat's wide open. Depend on chat to give us more relevance and direct us in most positive ways to create some wonderful takeaways. With that, I'll open it up to Kelly first to kind of bring us up to date and then move right to Michaela. So, Kelly. Wow.
Yes, thank you. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are tuning in from. And I am tuning in today from beautiful San Diego. My body doesn't know where it's at lately. I've been traveling a bit, which has been so nice, but always grateful to come back here every week and then plug it in. And this is the first time in a while I've done a twofer in a week, Don, because Monday.
Yeah, that's true. You can't. It became a foursome after Harvey picked up, and then our guest figured out what time it was.
Yeah, so fun. But today's topic, of course, marketing. This is going to be so fun for so many reasons. And knowing a little bit of Michaela's background and what brought her into marketing is very similar to how I got into marketing, which was quite organic, and just how I really love how people think and operate, how organizations operate, how they function, how internal communications impacts different departments and how people respond, how different messaging to different parts of the country are digested different. And of course, our ever-changing world currently of AI and people being terrified of it and not really sure what to do. This should be a very exciting conversation. So I'm also excited to hear what the audience has to say or questions that they may have, because I feel like marketing as a whole can seem like such a daunting process that you absolutely have to have a strategy for in your business. So so I'm excited to see where this goes, and welcome, Michaela. It's so lovely to have you with us today. So I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. This is my first live stream, so I'm super excited. I also had an organic approach to marketing and how I became involved, I guess. So I started off as a psychology major, so I also was super interested in the psych world and how the behavioral aspect from consumers affects the businesses and that relationship. And so that's what I ended up studying. And after graduation, helped a small business kind of get their name and their voice, which then that's when I found my passion of being able to help people find their voice and help people define their brands. I'm super excited for this conversation.
Yeah, I'm going to sign off and sign on. I hear there's an echo. So, Kelly, why don't you take it from there?
You got it.
Okay. So let me sign off. I guess it doesn't sound so bad now, so maybe it heard.
Well, now it's cleared up. It actually almost sounded like there was airplanes flying by or something.
Yeah, maybe that's true. So anyways, again, so excited to be here. My background has been in developing businesses. I'm very strong at marketing, especially when it comes to e-commerce and marketplaces. And really interested to know from Michaela, what drove you? I know you had an interest into now developing it as a profession.
It kind of fell into my lap. I started off in the insurance world as my first
Me too.
experience. I feel like that's a lot of people's starts, is what I've come to find. But then COVID hit. I was furloughed, and my uncle had just started a small business and had no idea how to run his business platform. Was posting on his own Facebook page, thinking that was his business page. And so I offered some assistance in getting that set up, and then was able to help build enough to open up 2 more locations. And yeah, it's kind of gone from there.
Well, that's terrific. Kelly, I know you're so experienced and professional at marketing. What is your new going forward perspective on applying marketing?
It's interesting because the thing that changes really is just the tools. The approach is still the same, because regardless of what people think, and I do think this is something a lot of small businesses specifically struggle with, is they think they've got to tell the world how great they are. Like, everybody loves me. I'm so accomplished. I've done this, which those are good facts to know. And that helps us rationalize our purchase after we've done it. But none of those things are going to make us buy anything. The only thing that's going to make us buy is an emotional response that we have to something. Time and time again, which is one of the things with AI that people need to be careful with, is because AI is a great tool. I will never say not to use it. I just say be wary of how you use it and understand how to use it. Because when you punch in something, it's punching out information from a bot. So it has no emotion, generally speaking. Even when you ask it to be emotional, it's not very emotional. And it's not usually your brand. You still need to put your hands on it and make that sound like your voice, your brand, have your feeling. And one of the things that I think is also important for folks to remember is when people say write at a fourth grade level, it's so that everybody can ingest the information. And part of that is because we like things that hit our subconscious in the way of our inner child. And a great example is one of my favorite brand examples to use is Skittles. Taste the rainbow. We can't taste the rainbow, but our inner child, our subconscious is like, heck yeah, I want to taste the rainbow. And we're drawn to that. That's an emotion. So I think that's always a great example to play on and to remember that's what makes people buy. Has nothing to do with all your statistics, all the things. Facts put us to sleep. Even though I'm a super data nerd and I love stats, but that's a different story. So I think those are just some basics to think about, because the strategy still is the same. It's just really how the tools are changing and evolving and how quickly they're changing and how to stay on top of those and understanding. Michaela made a great point with her uncle, and I believe it was your uncle, who was using his personal Facebook page as his business page. No, that's not really the best approach of how to do it. And there is a strategy. And it's also important to know that each platform, whether it is Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and I'll leave it here and turn it over to Michaela after this last little point. I've seen a lot of folks in small business who have a rockin' Instagram game. Like they do so well. They don't get a lot of purchases from it, but their game is great and they've got incredible engagement and they get a lot of folks following. They try to put that and translate it onto a LinkedIn post. It doesn't work because it's not the same audience. So you need to always keep that in mind, that all of these platforms, you can't just make one image, one message and put it across all platforms and think that it's going to do all the same thing. So I'll leave it there and turn it over to Michaela and get her thoughts on this.
Yes, no, I love that. That's the whole human side of business growth that I absolutely am drawn to. The whole emotional aspect is definitely something that I think needs to be taken into consideration, especially with the use of AI. I think AI can sometimes remove those emotions, like you were saying, and without the human aspect in regards to that in your messaging and in your copy, you can lose that connection that is really the main goal to make with your consumers and customers.
Well, that's a great start to a great conversation. And, I think all of us understand that each social media platform is distinct unto itself, and transferring just posts for convenience sake really doesn't apply to relevance to the audience and back to you. And what I love about live streaming is it's in the moment, real people, real conversation. In this day of AI and bots and everything else, authenticity can be so important, and being yourself. There's so many people that try to assume a persona that really doesn't last over time because they can't maintain it. And, everybody's going to find out who you are anyways. Why that long period of time until they see you for who you are? And it's much more comfortable just to be yourself. And in a format like this with an hour, there's plenty of time where most people don't have to put in their 5-minute elevator pitch or less. And consider that if they didn't get a sale at the end of the show, it wasn't as successful as it could be. So Kelly, I know that you've kind of parlayed live streaming into wheelchairs for warriors, which you're the outreach person for.
Mhm.
How did live streaming work for you?
Yeah, well, I will say, I think one of the top trends, which is kind of crazy to say for 2024, has been one-on-one meetings, face to face, and obviously some kind of digital format video. If you're not doing video, you've got to do something like add video. I think there's such an easy way. Live streaming, for me, when I first started it with you, Dawn, like I had no idea what I was doing or what was going to come from it. It was just like, let's just see how this goes, and ended up enjoying it so much. And of course, started my own show, have done so many other shows, and people were saying, why are you doing that when you're not getting paid for it? And I'm like, but that's not about that. It's about something else. And I think live streaming has such a strong force of providing credibility and putting you out there, recognizability, brand recognition, all the things. Because the way that I've gotten a few clients, which was never anticipated or wasn't the strategy when I started doing live streaming, it truly was for myself. To give me something to do and show up for, because getting laid off in 2020 was devastating to me. I, like most people, but I'd already had a career and couldn't get a job, and that was something I'd never experienced in my life. So it was a way to fulfill, my own personal emotional part, and also being part of a community that was supporting each other, and helping one another out. But it's led to work because people are like, girl, I see you in my feed all the time, or I keep seeing you and I love what you're doing. And you get to meet some incredible people that over time do introductions. And it's just kind of that wonderful snowball effect of community where people are connecting, and then, it leads to work, which is pretty incredible. But it's very organic. And people forget about that, and I think in marketing specifically, and this is another big error that folks make, so y'all might want to take a note. They think by hiring a new marketing person over and over and over again, and they're like, gosh, I just have this get done and I want to start seeing sales. Like I should be seeing sales in 30 days. And it's like, that's not realistic. And when you're continually changing a campaign, man, I've seen this too many times. It's like after 30 days, something's not working and they want something different, and they're not listening to be like, hey, you need to let this run for a while because it needs to get feet. Like people need to be familiar with it, see it a few times, and you're planting seeds along the way. Remember, there could be a short game, but there's also a long game, and you can't rush that no matter how you try. Um, because this is a great example. If you would have told me 2 years ago that I would have done, I don't know, hundreds of live streams by now, and some of the clients I'd be working with, I would probably have said you were crazy. Um, but it all came from doing an organic live stream and doing like what you said, Dawn, because we all have our own brand, right? We all are us, and figuring out who that is. For me was an interesting transition from being corporate, Kelly, being an executive, and then now doing live streaming. It's such a great way to be authentic and just be you, and embrace your weird, embrace your nerd, embrace all of the things about us that in corporate America sometimes we have to stifle a bit. I could never have shown up at the office looking like this. I can guarantee you that. So have fun with it and just figure out who you are. You don't always have to know exactly what you're doing right away or what the purpose is. We sure didn't, and it has blossomed into something I'm so proud of and so grateful. I've got to meet some incredible human beings along the way. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, right on, because we've also created a community within a community, our cohort group that actually this afternoon.
Yes.
And everybody is learning their own way and also creating their own way, but coming together, it's easier to share what we learned individually and collectively this week so we can all ratchet up faster. And there's nothing like collective and collaborative support to make a difference. before I switch it over to Michaela, let's recognize some of these people. We've got Omar here, who Omar was on. Yeah, he's the greatest. He was on the show yesterday with Dave.
I know.
And was a great show. And Omar has invited pretty much everybody on our group onto his show. And, that's another reason why having Omar on this show makes so much sense, because
I will finish the application, Omar.
Because I think the principle of reciprocal support makes so much sense, because you have to be a go-giver in order to even consider receiving something. And in situations, you don't want to be the person who needs to get something in order to do something for somebody, because it usually doesn't happen very, very often or very fast. So instead of waiting for something to happen, it's easier to create something to happen. Mm-hmm. So welcome, Omar. Look forward to having you back. Look forward to your show with Dave. We've got Carrie here, who comes almost every day with his joke. How does a computer take your coffee? And bits and bytes. Very good. Omar comes back with good morning, guys, for the second time. And always appreciate Omar. So Michaela, not having that much experience in live streaming, what do you tend to see what it could look like at the front end of things where we are that could integrate and support what you're already doing in a better way?
That's a good question. I think live streaming, bringing back the whole authenticity aspect of it, but it also is connection. So
yes,
perspective with yourself and figuring out who you are as a person, but then creating the connection within your network to find your people, to make that networking build more effectively, so then you are showing up as yourself within your community.
Great answer. So Kelle, looking forward, all these shows you've done and how you've developed and evolved kind of lends itself to understanding that what we're doing is always a work in progress, and who we are is a work in progress, and really seeing those changes that you can look back on over a longer period of time to see where you develop from and how you develop too. And you made an interesting comment the other day when you were at your latest conference or get together.
Oh, yeah.
How people really knew you from this show that you never would have known.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And because it is just about, credibility and then relatability, all the things, but also recognition. That's a huge thing. I will say one of the clients that I did get, they were seeing me in their feed, but didn't really know what I was doing, and then started watching them. And then of course became like, oh my gosh, I love this show. And then eventually reached out to me saying, hey, this is a long shot, but would you by chance, be willing to do we're looking for someone to do this work for us that was specific in the capital market space, which of course I've got expertise in. And I was like, yes. But that didn't happen overnight. It took a period of months I just kept coming into their feed. And that's that whole top of mind, right? We want to be that person that people think about. Maybe I don't need someone right now, but later we want to be that person that at least people reach out to and say, hey, Michaela, I heard you, you keep talking about all these super cool things, bringing in about the psychology of marketing, and I'm so fascinated by it. And we're looking for something different. Would you be open to have a conversation? Those are going to open doors that would otherwise never open, because remember how we all respond to video and seeing people. I can write the most killer message and people can read it and be like, oh, that was awesome. But they're going to forget about it over time. They do remember you, your face, how you made them feel. That's the whole thing of going back to emotion. How do you connect with other human beings? And that's how people want to feel. I want to feel connected with those folks that I'm working with. I want to feel that they care about what I'm doing. I used to say that as a corporate executive hiring vendors, was always, I want you to care about my thing as much as I do, because you're a business partner to me. You're not just someone that I'm paying to fulfill and help do a project. I want you to be, you're part of my team, and I want you to act as such. And it goes to what you were saying, Don, about the reciprocity. People want to feel needed, wanted, all the things, part of the team, and not just someone that's filling a little cog in the wheel. But that's a different show too, because internal marketing and how you deal with your teams, your organization as a whole, internal marketing is a big, big deal. Because how do your employees feel when they show up to work? Are they waking up Monday morning going, oh, are they like, yes, I can't wait to get to the office? Some of us don't like to get up early, so I understand that you might drag to get there. But once you're there, you're like, yes, I love what I do, and excited to be around who you're around. And I think in the marketing space specifically, what I always loved about it is regardless of what was happening in our overall organization in the culture, I always had my little subculture with our whole marketing team. We would have daily stand-up meetings, and that was just for everyone to touch base. What's everybody working on? What do you need help with? But it's more so about taking acknowledgement of what's happening with the team and making everyone feel part of the community. And you taking the temperature of everyone, to see, is someone feel a little bit off today, and knowing when to step in. The other part of that was taking our teams and particularly in marketing, and allowing them to have a safe space. When you feel safe and supported, you are more apt to take risk. And as a marketer or any creative, you're going to have teams that far exceed anything that you ever imagined when they feel safe to throw any idea out onto the table. Because I always said, this is our safe space. We may laugh on an occasion when you throw something out there, but you never know what crazy, silly idea that comes into your brain that will evolve into something spectacular. So I think that's an important component too.
Yeah, I mean, I could listen for the whole hour to what you were just saying.
I know, Lord knows I could talk the whole hour. I'm sorry.
That's why so many shows. And before I swing it back to Michaela, I think the key point that Kelle makes is people want to know who you are before they know what you do. And once you can, and this is really as much for your personal and professional brand as it is for your initiative, because your initiatives will change, but people will continue to remember who you were by how you treated others, and how you treat others is how they feel they'll be treated. And having the opportunity to promote and support the people you're with, especially being live, tells you're more generous, that you're not here just to promote something or sell something, but you're here to get to know people and have people get to know you. And I know, like Beverly Glazer, who does every Tuesday with Women's Empowerment, she always offers anybody a 15-minute Zoom call just to get acquainted and to answer any questions. So she demonstrates her ability to be accessible and open and available, and takes down those barriers of restriction, or hey, if you're not this, there's no reason to talk, because you can learn something from everybody, and everybody has a true voice. Most people have been marginalized, are sitting in a corner somewhere because they're not invited in. And this is a way of empowering yourself to say, hey, I'm going to do a show. I'm going to talk about what I feel, who I am, and what I'm looking for, because there's 1 billion people registered on LinkedIn. And when we compare it with Facebook and YouTube, it gets huge. You really want to niche yourself into what is it that you're doing now that's so exciting for you, that people, when they hear you, they kind of dance to your music and don't concern themselves yet with your words. And people want people that make them feel better, like Kelle says. Some people like elevators, some take you up, some take you down. You got to have that vibe. You got to have that energy that transfers over the internet, where people feel better for the time that they had with you and look forward to the next time. And I think that's so important. And again, Kelle made that important point. Most people are like, hey, if it's not a sale, I'm not interested. Well, and Kelle's famous for the pitch slap comment that everybody tends to use, where they connect with you and 2 minutes later, you got a 6-paragraph, here's all the stuff I can do to help you without ever knowing you. So Michaela, turning it over to you.
Okay. Yeah, no, there's a lot of things there that I want to make comments on. One thing that it made me think of was there was a conference that I went to a couple years ago, and the whole connection aspect. When I would get people's contact information and add my phone number into their phone, I would take a selfie with them and then text it to them. So then this morning, when they were going through the contacts and all of the phone numbers that they got from the conference, they put it to my face. And so it wasn't just another name or another business card. And that turned out to be extremely successful in regards to actually getting responses. But I think that worked because of the psychological connection and being able to make those relationships and building those relationships. But I am curious, I kind of want to bring it back to the whole AI aspect, which is what we started with at the beginning. And we talked about the approach staying the same with the emotion needing to be in the process, but with the tools that are changing, how do you think that is going to be affecting the marketing landscape? Because I know that there's a lot of people who are, one, they don't understand marketing, and then two, are trying to dive out of the marketing space because of AI. And I want to know your opinions, Kelle, in regards to what that looks like next.
Yeah, it's so interesting for so many reasons because here's one of those things over my entire career. When the market crashed in 07, 08, I know before your time, Michaela, but watching that happen and that changed the course of my career. I got pulled into a different part of business because they were elevating, whereas the side I was in that had to deal with the crash was crumbling. And the first team to go, or the first position, is almost always marketing. And the fascinating thing to me is, and I know that happened in 2020, and seeing that, being a marketing executive in 2020, trying to get hired was impossible. And it was devastating because I'd never not been hired in my life. If I wanted a job and I wanted that position, I got it. And so it was, and I don't mean that as a cocky anything. It was just, I knew what I wanted. I went after it. I got it. And so this was a whole new thing for me to be like, well, what do you mean you're not going to hire this position now? Or, 6 months later, I'm finding out we're going to go ahead and postpone, or now we're not going to fulfill this because we've decided we don't need to have this internal marketing executive anymore because we've been operating without it. But it is, how have you been operating and how have you been functioning in a successful manner? Marketing is what you should be focusing on when everyone else, the rest of the market is shutting off their marketing because it is the first to go, generally speaking. You should be focusing on it. I mean, that's kind of an insight of where do you go. I think the mistake with some companies, and they will see this, replacing, you can't replace human beings with AI in whole. Everything will become, and this is just my opinion, I see it, if everybody were to go AI, everything's just going to be ho hum. You know what I mean? Everything is going to have this flat feel about it. It's going to be cool and it'll look super rad. But it's not going to make me feel anything really different. I feel like everything's just going to sort of be like, meh, you know what I mean? And whatever I pick, I'm satisfied with, but it's not going to be the same experience or the same end user experience. It's twisted around and I could go down the psychological path of this for days, but it's turning it around from the sense of getting me to tell the seller, whoever it is, how I want to use their product. What AI is doing is it's turning around and telling the product, it's telling me how I need the product. So it's a reverse psychology, which is, it's fascinating. But it's also, and I don't want to say terrifying in the way that it's scary, but it is a little bit, not gonna lie, because it's very manipulative. And that's one word as a marketer we've never liked. You don't want to be like, oh, it's so manipulative. But it is, because we're playing on emotion, and that's what you want to hit to get people to purchase. But the twist of what's happening with AI, again, for me, it's fascinating. I think it's going to be very difficult for a lot of organizations, particularly small business, leaning too much into AI substitute without at least having a human being involved to add the emotion to it. I don't think we're going to be fully manipulated by AI for a bit, but I would, again, I could go on for this for hours just from the psychological aspect. But that's kind of what I see. Again, it's fascinating and a little scary, not gonna lie.
Well, that's a great overview, Kelly, and I agree with you. You know, marketing as a word is almost equated with sales or
Yeah.
promotion, and at the foundation level, it's really communication. You know, is how are you communicating, and how are you relating, how are you connecting, and you know, if you're long term and building long term relationships, you want to try to get away from transactional efforts, you know, like 3 days only, got to get it while it's here. You know, you're always pushing urgency when most people should be backing up. So many people get ahead of themselves. They get
Yeah.
really aggressive, they get overly ambitious, and maybe they don't really appreciate how they look or sound. One thing about these shows, sometimes when you go back and watch a show without the voice, it's the facial expression, it's the transfers, it's the genuine authenticity that makes such a difference. And with that said, we're fortunate to have Leslie Flowers with us today. Leslie is a champion at everything she does. She does the Think and Grow Rich show, which is a live event on Fridays that precedes this show by an hour, and also does Mind Over Matter on Mondays, which is an audio event. Just published her new book, of which I think I bought one. She was generous for 99 cents, and it became a
Errata.
bestseller. And that's the other thing, is everybody you get to know ultimately supports you in one way, shape, or another. And couldn't do a show without a relevant audience and a supportive audience. And that takes time to build. And that's another reason why having a collaborative group makes so much sense, is because you get syndicated, right? I was the first guest on Leslie's show, Harvey's show, and you tend to kind of go with the people that you've been going with, and you build around that, and it makes so much sense. Leslie wants to know what's the topic. It's marketing today. Always happy to see what Leslie has to say about things. Me and Leslie did probably about 50 shows. We were doing Saturdays for quite a bit and had just a ball. People would compare us with Lucy and Desi. And
Yes.
the possibility of Errata, 3 chapters drafted for book 2. Congratulations. You know, Leslie's just a real go-getter and a go-giver. So always appreciate you, Leslie. Always welcome to the show. Turning it over to Michaela. You're starting to meet people.
Let me put in one point, and then I want to get Michaela's feedback, because this will go to what I was just saying too. And I can't believe I didn't bring up the pitch slap, Dawn.
Yeah.
Because that is a thing with AI that drives me bonkers. And what I want people to understand, and wish that I could get across to more people, is y'all doing this automated email specifically into LinkedIn or wherever it is, as soon as you connect or before you connect, again, Dawn saying you've got these paragraphs of things that you're telling me how you're going to fix all these problems that you think I have, but you haven't even had a conversation with me. And you don't even really know what I do or where I am in my own business strategy. The reason that's such a mistake, and this is where AI fails, because not only have you lost the opportunity, you've closed the opportunity, because it's so off-putting to people. Like I will be like, delete, done, block, whatever the situation is, depending. So now you're not even someone I would consider later, even if we don't have any synergy to do business with now. Maybe to be like, oh, now I'm seeing Michaela in my feed all the time. She does this. Oh, I just met somebody that needs her. I'll do a connection. I do that all the time. But if you are someone who's trying to sell me, fix me right away without even knowing anything, you've closed the door. And you need to remember that you might get a few bites out of that for lead gen. But I promise you, the number of doors that you are closing is far greater than what you are gaining in your funnel. So those are my thoughts there. And I'd love to get Michaela's info on that.
Yes, I agree. I like the term pitch slap. That's the first time I've heard that. But I find that comical. And I know what you're talking about with the cold email and the messaging. So yeah, I agree with that. I think creating the connection and establishing your authority in regards to where you stand and your experience with the person builds better connections and opens more doors versus the pitch slapping. Which can be hard to do, but once you're figuring out how authentic or being authentic and showing up as you and doing that interpersonal work of showing up how you are, especially with these lives and creating your own community, I think it becomes easier. Because, like you said, when you were corporate, it was completely different, and showing up separately, still business professional, but separately from the corporate world can be a big culture shock.
Well, and I think, pitch slapping does show the genuine authenticity of that person too, because that's who they are. And that makes it easier to separate those from the people who are willing to have a little more patience, don't prejudge, don't have their own agenda, but have a shared agenda that includes people and supports people, because so many people are out there with a hand up instead of a hand down. And what's good for you is good for a lot of people like you. And, if you just follow kind of the golden rule in most cases, and, when you're doing shows almost every day and you've done so many of them, it's important to bring value, because there's going to be another show the next day, and there's going to be more opportunities. So you're not under the gun to say, hey, this is my only shot on the Tonight Show or whatever it is, and I got to make it good. And, the nice thing about live is you can't edit it. And usually when you do organic video, you're so busy writing scripts, trying to be professional, editing out any mistakes. And what you got is just plain vanilla, and it's clean and it's not really fresh, but people don't relate to that. And people are smarter than people give themselves credit for. They know when something's real and they know when something's false. And you want to learn from better people. They say don't ever be the smartest person in the room. So it's a lot easier to get around people who have different skill sets, different directions, different time frames, and be open. And that's another thing. So many people feel what they got is like gold and they don't want to share it, or they learn something and they keep it to themselves and they got nothing to begin with. And they'll probably have very little going forward. And I think the other big element is trust. And so many people have lost the ability to trust. So many people have become cynics or skeptics or challengers. Like I always say, no one's ever built a statue for a critic, and you are what you are, and you should embrace it and celebrate it and enjoy it. And if it's not that way, you should allow yourself to change, and there's a saying, for things to change, you have to change. Because that's the only thing you really have a lot of control over. And I think when you're around people like Harvey and Kelly and all the people in our group, one common thread is they all are good-hearted. They are all really try to do good for themselves as well as a lot of people around them, and are willing to commit to helping others. And you only know a friend when it's time in need. Everybody's a good friend when the sun's out, but what happens when the clouds show up and it starts raining and you find yourself with people you never thought would support you and feel rejected by the people you always thought would be there? And that's why expanding your circle of influence and your circle of friends, where you don't put all your eggs in one basket and you allow people the freedom to come and go, and things change in people's lives. Some people will take you to a certain spot, won't take you any further. It's time to pivot. The last thing I'll say is you're really the factor of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So what are they doing? Where are they going? Is that where you want to go? And again, it's a choice. And I'd rather be proactive than reactive. And, once you can help yourself, you can help more people because of who you now became. And success breeds success. Things that you never thought you could accomplish and you do gives you hope to now enter areas that you maybe had been kind of tenuous about getting into. And then having people tell you you are more than you think you are when that happens. Makes a difference because some people always have their own loop in their head and the game is between them and themselves, as opposed to embracing more people and supporting more people. So Kelle, you've been an ideal model for generosity and support for so many people. And I think everybody gets to know you for that, which is even more important than the specific technical skills you might have or creative elements, because they trust you and they believe in you. And that's an important thing that most people never achieve. Kelle.
Wow. Well, thanks for that. That felt great. Yeah, and it does make me want to go back to say, I think when people come into live streaming specifically, is to look at it as a way for credibility and visibility. Like those are the two things you should be seeing it for. We've had so many people say, like, what kind of ROI do you guys get by doing this? Well, we didn't start it out with the idea of ever monetizing. Like that wasn't a thing. We started truly just as an organic way of connecting with others. And the beauty of going along this part of my journey with you, Dawn, is when we first started this, there was no topic, there was no anything. It was completely driven by whatever the audience was saying. And we had people from all over the world. And all I could think is like, man, why is everybody showing up? And it didn't matter, and when I'm talking all over the globe was showing up. So all different socioeconomic, race, religion, the whole thing. And it was like, it's because everyone right now is looking for human connection, and human connection is all about love. That is a universal language, period. And if that isn't, and that's the part of marketing that people need to understand, is that's the emotion that makes us go, I'll buy something. Like, I just felt good. It matches what I'm looking for. And that was the beauty of this journey, part of my journey with live streaming. But it is all of that, just about human connection and about people knowing that that's you. Like, who are you? And people try to be something that they think their audience wants them to be. Big mistake. Audience will always read through that. It may fool for a little bit, but it will always come to the surface at a later time. So I highly encourage people to not do that. If you're not someone who's great on camera, or you feel frightened by doing something that's live, find somebody else in your organization. Get someone to sit with you and ask you a couple of questions that you can answer and just have a conversation. The thing about this platform that I think is so wonderful to add to anyone's strategy is because as the three of us are sitting here together, it's just as if we're sitting with each other having a cup of coffee. It doesn't feel like when you're standing on a stage in front of 500 people. That does give me, still to this day, I do like it, but it still will give me a physiological response where my heart will be racing at first until I can get into my groove and feel embraced by the audience. So it's totally different and much more relaxed. And I think it's such a great way to really find out who you are and what your strengths are. You don't need to be like anybody else. Nobody wants you to be like anybody else. When people try to, what is the thing? Duplication is the best form of flattering. Like when somebody copies what you do, it's the best form of flattering. Again, that's great, but it's not going to translate well. You might have it for a short time. And the other thing, before I turn it back over, is remembering that, if you're pitch slapping people all over the place and you're getting a transaction out of it, you've gotten a transaction. And what is that transaction going to do? One, for your brand. You want loyalty. I mean, if you're just selling one thing and you're never going to do anything else again, like, what's the point? Like, the whole point is to have people want to come back. So no matter what products or service that evolve over time, that people are just going to see that, like, oh my gosh, Dawn has another thing. I'm so going to go get it because I loved my experience with the first one because it made me feel good. We like to do what makes us feel good. So we will always go back to that. And I don't know if this is something that you actually ever studied, but I'm going to guess it was, because a lot of times people might hear when it comes to marketing, there's archetypes that go into marketing, and it comes from Jung, which is a psychologist, and it's broken down into, and it depends on what organization does this, 12 to I think 16 different archetypes, because not all products are the same and they don't apply to every person. You're trying to hit who your customer is. What I want, if I'm looking for a trainer at the gym, I'm looking for transformation. I want to be better, more beautiful. I want to be a better version of myself. That's the kind of messaging I want to hear. If I'm looking for a wealth manager, I want someone who's an authority in this space, because I need to trust and have credibility. They need to know more than I do, so I don't feel stupid when they're talking about things that are above my head. I feel like, wow, they're really good at their job. Again, about what we're looking for. And a lot of times as a person with the market that has the product or service, we can get so mixed up into our own thoughts of what our product or service is that we're confusing the end user or our audience or our prospective client, because we see it differently. And I'll throw this out there too, because this will be interesting to see what Michaela says too. I've had people say to me like, well, if you're in marketing, why do you need someone to help you market? Well, because when it comes to marketing ourselves or something in ourselves, and I'll tell you what, every single agency I've ever talked to has always had outside marketing input, because when you're inside it, it's very difficult sometimes to see it from the outside again. No matter how subjective you think you can be, it's very difficult. So getting someone else to give it a look and give you input, it's very important that you take it in, and you've got to leave the ego at the door, people.
Well, that's great, Kelly. I know Leslie now has been prodigious in her commenting, and I'll before moving to Michaela, I'll share some of these: responsive versus reactive, objective versus subjective, conscious versus subconscious. Leslie gives a shout out for Wheelchairs for Warriors, which is Kelly's near and dear organization that she helps so many first responders and vets.
And I do have to do a little shameless plug. If you go to my profile, I just did a post yesterday because Wheelchairs for Warriors' new logo design was just put up for vote in Best of Arizona. So please go vote.
Well, and that's great. And, you know, I know me and Kelly have had the opportunity of being with a major general who came on both of our shows and has wrote a book. And, you know, it's just incredible the people who get attracted to you that you would have never met anyway, or never met on equal terms. You would be the one, please, can I have a time with you? Versus I've got an opportunity for us. And it elevates everybody. And it also shows how valuable you are when people that you would look up to and admire, look up to you and admire you for your qualities. So it's not a competition, it's a cooperation. Leslie comes back with, video takes time and practice, and navigating a studio. Audio is easier, perhaps to start. You're right.
Very true.
Emulation is the best form of flattery.
Yes.
Has said pronounced Jung. So that was in relationship to the archetype.
Did I not say Jung? Did I not say Jungian?
I think you said it in a Phoenix way. So maybe
I meant Jung. Sorry if I didn't.
Western America, and German is who Jung, I guess, was.
Yes.
So thank you, Leslie, for all the updates. And that's the beauty of having people participate, is they add value. Most people only want the comments that are complimentary, right? Want people to tell you how great you are, you know, and all this stuff. And constructive criticism is necessary. It's important. Sometimes you don't know how you look until you look in a mirror, or more importantly, ask a friend, what do you think? You know? So with that, Michaela.
I think what you just said is very important, in looking in the mirror and being able to take criticism, especially constructive criticism. Yeah. But going back to the archetypes, when you were talking about that within the marketing framework, it made me think of the Enneagram types. Are you guys familiar?
Yeah.
So having multiple different personalities within the room in regards to the marketing aspect gives different perspective, which then helps the messaging. And I think it's cool to look at the archetypes as a base to start, but then to add the emotion in with the Enneagrams. I nerd out over the Enneagrams a lot. I think they're super interesting. And so being able to combine those together, I think, is a unique approach that businesses can utilize, especially when you have multiple different numbers within the room.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great, and we're adding value to everybody else's added value. It's like building a house, it's like one brick at a time, but you're building strong and you're allowing people to come in and add their brick to the wall. And it can be like a tapestry, where people can add their specialty to make everybody's specialty a little bit better, a little bit bigger. And you don't have to carry the load all the time. Sometimes you can take the passenger seat and let someone else take the wheel and enjoy the ride. And you never know what you would have missed if you didn't have that opportunity to look out your window and see new things. And I think just the ability to have gratitude, I know that makes so much difference, is people are always looking up instead of looking down. They forget where they came from. They forget what it took to get to where they are. And they're always looking at other people. And, well, they're getting there faster. They're making more. They're doing more. Well, your focus is on something you have no control over. And I know everybody wakes up having a challenge or an issue that you'll never know or see. And I think that's the courtesy we can all bring, is too many people take things at face value and then are reactive instead of responsive. Someone says something and it triggers something, and you say something that if you would have had a few more moments or even a day, I know we always say, anytime you're about to send an angry email or a text, wait a day, because you'll start to adjust it, because you'll start to figure out, here's what I want to communicate and here's what I want my communication to result in, versus you upset me and you did this and you did this. And most people will come back and then not really apologize, but they'll defend. And, just finishing the book today on, what was it? It was Dale Carnegie, Influencing People and Winning Friends.
Yeah. That's a good book.
Yeah, I know, it was beautiful because, and I've heard it before, but sometimes when you come back to a new Audible or a new book, you hear things you thought, how did they just put this in from the last time I read this? I never noticed it. But it was always making people feel better, giving people reasons to be better and to do better. Telling somebody to do something never gets as much as influencing people to find their own solution to their own issue. And being somebody, like Kelle says, you'll never forget. Some people come into your life for a moment and change everything, just because they added a piece of a puzzle to you, just because they brought out things that were beautiful about you that you tended not to take at heart. Here's Leslie, fact checker today. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Thank you.
Such a good book.
Another book he did was Stop Worrying and Start Living. And some of these old masters, some of their wisdom is timeless. Is always valuable, because people like people. We're human. We evolved so much slower than technology, and people enjoy that. And Leslie says you didn't notice it because you were at different levels of conscious awareness when you knew it the first time. So we daydream and miss things. So when we go back, we think things weren't there. They were. And the last thing I'll add is faith is the belief in the invisible. And sometimes you just got to believe, because you not only want to believe, because the belief is true in your mind, and that will drive you further than thinking you're all alone and it's all about you, and it gets challenging. Michaela, I'll shoot it back to you, and then we'll finish up with final thoughts.
I completely agree on that. Faith is one of my strong-standing strongholds.
Love it.
I guess I want to shoot it back to you. I'm not sure where to go with this.
That's okay. That makes you even better
Yes.
for saying that, because it's where you are and how you are, and it transfers so well. And
It's real.
what's that song? You say everything when you say nothing at all. You know,
Yes.
Kelly, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so many things. I think this is so great, and it's always wonderful to have someone on for the first time doing live stream. And I always love watching the evolution of someone. Granted, you seemed very calm and collected the whole time, but we've watched people over the years that are like terrified beforehand because they're always worried about like, what if I mess up? Well, the beauty is we're human beings. We're all going to flub up. I've been mid-sentence sometimes and I'll be like, what was I saying? I'm so sorry. I lost where I was going. But we can relate to that. That's what makes us all real. And I think there's such a beauty about live stream for that fact. I will always say there is a place, obviously, in marketing for produced video, and it can be done very well. If you're looking to add something to your strategy, I think at a low cost, big return, and if you're looking for credibility, visibility, live stream is the way to go because you can add it in truthfully with a little bit of planning and get it started, because it doesn't need to be an hour. You could do short little 5-minute clips that would also do great, and they can be repurposed in multiple ways, again at low cost. And a low barrier to entry for so many reasons, because guess what, if you find out like, God, I don't have time to do this, or I'm not coming across the way I want to on screen, whatever it is, it hasn't hurt anything and you just stop doing it, or you go back and you shift. Same thing with Dawn and I. We've learned so much from when we very first started. I literally, when I started my own show, it was throwing the date on the calendar. I didn't have a logo till the night before. I did everything backwards of what I tell anyone. There was no, because if I would have waited till it was fully branded, messaging was where I wanted it to be, I wouldn't have launched for like months and months and months and months. I think it's a space where we can jump into relatively quickly. And if you just need a little bit of hand holding to figure it out to get started, reach out to us. That's what we're here for. And that's what LinkedIn is for. Reach out to people and ask questions, because we're all here to help. That's what the whole point is of networking. I just had someone last night message me and say, hey, would you do me a favor and do an introduction with this person? Absolutely. I'm more than happy to do that. Did the introduction. It's the same thing. If you're looking to do something in your marketing strategy or in your business and you're unsure, you're looking for work, reach out to one of us and ask. If we don't know, we probably have someone, that we can send you to. And since we are coming up on the hour, and I will wrap and let you do the final words, Tom, I just want to end like I always end, because we all do have the power to make the difference in the world of someone else. And I've used the example so many times, just a simple smile at someone can change the course of their life. So you do have the power to go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
That never wears thin, Kelly. It's actually you're saying, and Harvey's, I forget what his when he shows something to everybody. I know his prop. He always had a prop.
Oh, yes.
And he always ended the show with a prop. And it's those little kind of cute things and important things. But anyways, I want to shout out to Leslie. So thanks for letting me hog the comments today. And Leslie is blushing right now. So keep blushing, Leslie. Welcome always to the show. And I'm always a big supporter of your shows and everything you do. One last thing I'll say is the first person to ever come on a show was a lady named Tara Gooch. And we did about 26 shows in a row. And she wrote me a nice note yesterday. She published her new book and gave me, acknowledgement in it. She's since then gone on to a London TED Talk. She's published 2 books. She's on a huge speaking tour, and she had never done a show. And, this was the beginning of everybody. And it's so nice to be able to see people just soar and surprise themselves on the success everybody has greatness within themselves.
Amen.
And it's just a matter of how do you get that going forward in a right way. So, Michaela, what's your thoughts on your first show? And then we'll close it out.
I'm excited. I definitely want to get into live streaming more. I'm thankful for the opportunity and for you guys having me on. And to say that I've done it already. Just without the show.
Well, we're honored to have you and look forward to having you back. And with that said, want to thank Kelle and Michaela one more time. Want to thank the audience, especially Leslie and Carrie, for really getting into the show and helping us drive this, the value home and to others. And the nice thing too, the last thing I'll say, is this will continue to bring value to people we will never see or meet because of the ability to play on YouTube forever and LinkedIn. It's funny, I've got 900 videos on YouTube and they don't have a lot of audience, but collectively it's over 30,000 people have seen or 30,000 views, and I have never done anything to market it, which is another great opportunity. Me and Kelle had talked about a repurposing video, making reels, shorts, things of that nature. So not to take anybody away from their day, want to wish everybody all the best and come back next week. And we've got another great lineup of people. So thank you, and we'll talk